And so I have to try and live my life day. That's why I was wearing my clerics.
Amen.
And I don't put on a lower shirt, when the day is over. I keep my clerics on. Why? Because I'm still a priest. There was a tweet.
That's right.
And tweets to me are not great sources of information. But here's something I'm going to reveal for the first time on your show. Okay,
Good.
no one else has heard this.
All right.
Love God, save souls, slay error, go stronger, go stronger, go stronger.
Father Fessio, welcome to the Terry and Jesse Show.
Even though Jesse's not here. Hey, Terry, is this video too or just audio?
Yeah, this is video too. Yeah, so I can see.
Oh, it's video too. Oh, my gosh.
We're on
Because I was going to
Facebook,
say, using the old expression, I've got a face made for radio.
Yeah, that's my line, Father. Father,
all right.
I just want to bring to your attention that a lot of our listeners are, Ignatius Press buyers. I've been promoting the new book by Fulton Sheen, my uncle Fulton Sheen, and I'm probably your biggest salesman when it comes to promoting Ignatius Press books because I've been so well formed by many of your books. And so one of the books that's coming out, and I'd like to set us straight, we've talked a little bit about this in the last 10 days. It's called From the Depths of Our Hearts, and it's a book that Cardinal Robert Sarah and Pope Benedict XVI Emeritus have written together. And I have a timesheet here from LifeSite News telling us all the things that have gone on with that, but I'd rather ask you, what the heck's going on? Why is there so much controversy about this book?
Terry, first let's do one thing. Yeah. What's really important is what's in this book.
Yeah, sure.
It's a beautiful book with an excellent chapter by Pope Benedict on the theology of the priesthood and the exegesis of the Old Testament, which helps us understand the priesthood. And then it's got a beautiful chapter by Cardinal Sarah on the pastoral consequences of celibacy or removing celibacy, and also how it affects the church and our idea of the priest. So, and it's such a good book, Terry. I was over the weekend with a friend of mine, Father Bob McTague, who's also, like you, a radio talk show host. He's a little younger than I am, but he's in his 50s anyway. He read the book and he said, I want to go back and start my priesthood over again.
Wow.
It moved him so much. So let's start with that. The book is a wonderful book. It's a book not just for this moment in the church. It's a book for history in the church. Why did they write it?
Yeah.
Both Benedict and Cardinal Sarah were concerned about the media surrounding the Amazon Synod, which is promoting a major change in the church's tradition about celibacy for priests.
Yeah.
And so they had these exchanges. They decided to write a book. They kept it kind of quiet until it was published. January 13th was the publication date for the French edition. But on the 12th, the Figaro magazine, newspaper in France, got wind of it, and they published this, some excerpts from it. And here's what I think has aroused so much opposition to it.
Okay.
You've got two great figures of the church, a former pope, who is one of the greatest theologians of our time, and a present cardinal who's also an extraordinarily good theologian and intellectual. They are both writing very powerfully, very strongly, and very persuasively that this should not be changed. Well, there's people in the church that don't want to hear that, and they especially don't want to hear it from people in authority. When I say authority, Benedict no longer has magisterial authority, but he has personal authority as to who he is as a theologian. And, of course, likewise, Sarah does not speak on behalf of the Pope, but he does speak as someone who understands the church and is a great writer and a great thinker. So, the short answer to your question, Terry, I believe, is that people who want the Pope to change the church's 2,000-year teaching and tradition on celibacy do not want a book out which opposes that change, and especially a book by two authors like these.
But the practical aspect of it is that you've given yourself to Christ and his church, and you've been available for not just people like myself. You married me, you've baptized my kids. You've been available 24/7. And on the practical level of priestly celibacy, how are we going to afford, if we were a church, to provide financially, and also on the practical level, you're divided between your wife, like St. Paul talks about. So my question is, tell me.
Okay, well, Terry, that's the least important question to ask, but we'll get to it.
All right, go ahead.
The more important question is, what did Jesus do? Why did Jesus give himself entirely to his bride? The church was not married.
Right.
And every priest participates in the priesthood of Christ. He's our model.
Yes.
And not only our model, when we say Mass, it's not our words, it's Christ's words.
Man.
When I say, this is my body, it's not Joe Fessio's
Nope.
body.
Nope.
It's the body of Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus Christ, crucified and risen. So that's the central thing. But likewise, Terry, as you know, as a married man,
yes,
being married and having children is a full-time commitment.
Big time.
Your wife has to come first. Your children have to come first.
Yep.
And more important than your radio show.
That's right.
More important than your real estate.
Yep.
More important than anything else you do.
Yep.
And so it really is a demeaning of marriage to say that, oh, you can be married and be a priest too, because after all, marriage is not that big a deal, right? You just get married. No, marriage is a full commitment also. And obviously there are exceptions, but we can't make exceptions in the rules. But because I feel bad, Terry, a lot of things I do, like this right now.
Yeah. I
don't have to be a priest to be able to talk to you about theology and about a book. But the point is, it's part of my priestly life.
Amen.
And it's part of my Mass every day. And so I have to try and live my life day. That's why I was wearing my clerics.
Amen.
And I don't put on a lower shirt, when the day is over. I keep my clerics on. Why? Because I'm still a priest.
Thank you.
Anyway, you're right. But it does have practical things too. And let me give you another even more important practical thing, because, in this book, From the Depths of Our Hearts, by Pope Benedict and Carlos Sarah says he would not be a priest today if it weren't for celibacy. Why? Because he was a little barefoot kid in a village in Guinea, West Africa, and his parents, his parents were baptized when he was 2. But why did his parents become Catholics? Because these priests came to their little village and established a church and a school.
Yep, French one.
And these people knew this isn't some village virus probatus, a mature man. They made a priest so he could say Mass for us. No, this is someone who gave his life for us.
Right.
Left this country, has no wife, has no children. He's here for us. And that was what brought his parents into the church, and that's what was the source of his vocation. So he's very ardent in pleading that we do not make an exception for the Amazon, because those people need priests that model and that represent the full gift that Christ gives to his spouse at church. And if there aren't enough priests, let's get some there from other countries.
Exactly. Okay, let me ask you this. On the 17th of January, Cardinal Sarah said he had met with Pope Benedict Emeritus over the priestly celibacy book, and that there was no misunderstanding between us. Okay, what's all that about?
Well, Terry, I have here on Monday, the 13th of January, there was a tweet.
That's right.
And tweets to me are not great sources of information, but the Rome correspondent for American Magazine, Gerard O'Connell, tweeted this: Benedict XVI did not co-author the book on priesthood and celibacy with Carlos Sarah. Story coming soon on American Magazine. Okay. That was at 3:12 p.m. on January 13th. That's at least when it shows up on the tweet here. Well, that was what, aroused the storm, it seems to me. And I actually emailed that tweet to Archbishop Genswein, who is both Pope Benedict's personal secretary, and he is the master of the papal household for Pope Francis. So he's got 2 bosses, so to speak. And there was a lot of confusion out there. And one of the things that happened was that Archbishop Genswein also tweeted something saying, Pope Benedict hadn't seen the cover. He didn't agree to write a book with 2 signatures. This is a misunderstanding. Well, it turns out that if you look at the history of this book, Pope Benedict did see the cover, did help correct the proofs before they went to the press of the French publisher, and approved everything that was in the book. And so he, by any definition of the term, he is an author or a co-author of the book. in any event, Cardinal Sarah, of course, is very upset by this, and on Tuesday morning, he issued a communique outlining the history of the book, including quoting from his letters to Benedict and Benedict's letters to him.
Right.
And then even that didn't quell all the concerns. And so on last Friday, which would have been the 13th, 14th, 17th, he tweeted, "I'm going to go see Pope Benedict tonight." And then after the meeting, he said, "We had a wonderful meeting, and there's no misunderstanding between us." Well, obviously there's a lot of confusion, Terry, in the few days that happen after an event. So we can understand that. But Cardinal Sarah is writing very carefully, and he's solemnly affirming what he's saying. And so I have to believe, both from the book itself, which I read now twice, once in French and once in English, and from Cardinal Sarah's accounting of the origin of the book, and quoting from letters from Benedict in his account, that this book, there's no misunderstanding. The two of them wanted to co-author this book. They thought it was important for the church, and that's why they entitled it, not From the Depth of My Heart by Cardinal Sarah, but From the Depth of Our Hearts.
Amen.
And Terry, here's something I'm going to reveal for the first time on your show, okay?
Good.
No one else has heard this.
All right.
I have in my hands here,
Yep.
I've got the contract that we have with the French publisher. And the contract is the license for a book by Benedict XVI and Cardinal Sarah. Who are the authors of this book? Okay, that's on clause 1 of this contract. On clause 4, it says, the publisher, that's us, Ignatius Press, undertakes to print the name of the authors on the jacket or cover and on the title page. So we're obliged by our contract to print the names of the authors, plural, on the dust jacket and on the cover.
Good. Father Fessio, thank you for sharing that. I know Pope Francis has said in December that he supports priestly celibacy, okay? So, but it just seems like there's people under him that are trying to, get non-support for this book. And one of them is an interesting fellow. He's an atheist, a Scafari. He's 95 years old. I think he's had 7 interviews with Pope Francis. And this was after a lot of this went on. And in his interview, which I don't really value too much, it's in LifeSite News. Maybe I shouldn't even be bringing it up, but he's trying to make a point that he's saying that Sarah really is undermining Pope Francis, which I don't think that's the case. But again, it's another case where they're trying to make bad news about this book and saying that this is undermining Francis, which I don't think is true. But what do you take about this interview, Father? Not much?
Well, first of all, I'm trying to find another piece of paper here. Oh, here it is.
Okay.
Because this is where, in this book, Cardinal Sarah quotes Pope Francis.
Yes.
Last year, 2019, who himself was quoting Paul VI, and Francis says, "I would rather give my life than change the law on celibacy."
Wow.
That's a quote from, he's re-quoting from Paul, but then Pope Francis continues, "Personally, I think that celibacy is a gift for the church. Second, I don't agree with allowing optional celibacy, no." So
pretty clear.
First of all, the Pope has not made a declaration as a result of the Amazon Synod, called a post-synodal document. Mm-hmm. He's not done it yet. Pope Francis has said many, many times he wants dialogue. He wants people not to be afraid to express their thoughts and their opinions, publicly. So this fits perfectly into what he's asked for. He wants opinions. And are we simply going to listen to Twitter?
No.
Or the liberal media, especially the secular media?
Yeah.
Or are we going to listen to people like Pope Benedict and Cardinal Sarah on this issue? That's the question.
Great point, Father. I'd like to shift to another topic, if you're okay with that, and that is you're coming to the Sacred Heart Chapel on the 14th of March, along with several others, to speak about the liturgy. That's